Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone's doing brilliantly. Today I will be joined by Dr. Joe Organ, his formal title, who is Brasenose's schools officer, and he's really kind of the professional guy that you go to if you have any questions about admissions to university or Oxford. And today we'll be asking all your frequently asked questions, and yeah, hopefully this is really useful to you guys. And make sure you like, comment and subscribe if you like this video. I'm just going to pass it on to Joe, who will introduce himself and just tell us who you are.
First, it's an honor to be in the presence of a real YouTube celebrity. So thanks very much for inviting me. So I'm Joe. I work as the schools officer at Brasenose, which is the college that Franxstudies at, and it's a college at the University of Oxford. And for 11 long years, I've been working in admissions and watching how tutors and candidates interact, and looking at all parts of the application process. So my idea is that families going to interview me, and we're going to try and get some of the insights, the key insights that I hope I have, and communicate them with you. Fun facts. So I was thinking about this, and my fun facts, which shows you how old I am, is that my personal statement when I went to university, you still had UCAS and you had personal statements all those centuries ago, but I had to handwrite my personal statements. So I had to try and use tiny handwriting to put it in the box. That's how old I am. And there just wasn't many computers around. My other less fun, but maybe more serious fact is that I always, as a male, I always worry that I'm not representing and understanding women's issues enough. It's something that I really hold that valuable, because I've been raised well by my mother, I guess. But I'm completely surrounded by women. I've got 2 daughters. I've got a wife. I've got a female cat. And I also have Alexa, and they'll keep me in shape and make sure that I am representing women as best as I can. So hopefully I've got a balanced view.
Awesome. They were amazing facts, and I guess without further ado, we'll start by answering some of your questions. The first one, which I get asked about very frequently, is about the personal statement. This is kind of the 4,000 character document that you submit alongside your UCAS form explaining why they should choose you. Joe, what do Oxford in particular look for in a personal statement?
It's about convincing us, really. So you have to think about it as the tutors are going to be reading your personal statement, and those are the guys that will be thinking about your application and deciding whether to admit you, and ultimately teaching you. So you've got to let them imagine you in a teaching session, in a tutorial or supervision or a class or whatever, and that you'll have the enthusiasm and the motivation to be an exciting student to teach. So they care mainly about the academic stuff. What they want you to do is to engage enthusiastically in your subject. So you have to be thoughtful and enthusiastic. So we really want you to kind of gush about your subject and just tell us why you love it so much, using evidence. So it's not just like, I love biology, it's brilliant, I really like it. We want to know what you've been doing. What have you researched? What have you read about? What have you done? And at the moment, that's quite tough with the pandemic. But there's so much that you can read at home. There's so much online that you can look at. So you don't need to worry about like limited opportunities. You could see it as an opportunity to actually sit down and read and think and reflect and engage. I think the personal statement's a nice way to think about it. It's a love letter to your subject. So show us why you love it so much. You don't need to use fancy words. You don't need to use flowery language. Just tell us, like in your normal language, what it is about your subject which has engaged and intrigued you so much. We don't need like a certain amount of books. We don't need a certain like number of weeks of work experience. There's nothing formulaic about it. It's just in any way, shape or form that you like, tell us about what you like about your subject. And the other thing finally is, you don't need to worry about what the tutors will find interesting. You don't need to second guess what you think they want to hear. Just tell us what you would like to tell us. If you find it interesting, then we'll find it interesting too. You have to remember the personal statement is just part of the picture. For most subjects, we do aptitude tests and interviews. There's also teacher's reference. There's also your GCSE scores, your A-level predictions. For some courses like history and English, there's written work as well that you submit to us. So we've got all this stuff to look at, and personal statements is just part of that picture. So we really want you to do well and to enjoy writing your personal statement. but it is just one of the measures that we use rather than the be all and end all.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess kind of following on from that, what would you say are the top couple of things to avoid? Are there any cliches that when you, in your experience of reading personal statements, you would recommend avoiding?
I mean, there's nothing that's like banned. There's nothing that we'll read and think, right, we've thrown this application in the bin. So it's not like that. But I guess there's a few things where, sometimes I'm reading personal statements and I'm thinking, this person is just telling me and not showing me. So we want you to show us your passion. You don't have to tell us you're passionate, because that will come through in your examples. So we can infer your passion by the things you're talking about rather than you needing to explicitly state it. So show, not tell. And then the other thing is, I guess some people think that Duke of Edinburgh and being good at hockey and any volunteering that you've done and starring in your own play or donating your liver to charity or something are the things that count and the things that really make a difference. Those are all great things. So carry on with your hobbies, carry on with your Duke of Edinburgh. They'll make you into a better person, they'll make you into a more grounded person, they're good for you. But actually it's not what we judge you on. We don't make assessments based on your sporting prowess. It's all on your academic stuff. So please do tell us a little bit about your hobbies, but I'd keep it to a minimum and put it at the end, because the personal statement has 4,000 characters, and probably Fran might remember that actually it's quite hard to edit it down so that it's within the word limit or the character limit. So save space academic stuff by not going on too much about your hobbies. We don't mind reading about hobbies, but we'd rather read about your kind of academic and scholarly interests.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Joe. I guess kind of when I was applying, one of the things that I could remember people saying is about the 80-20 ratio of super curric to extra curric. Maybe you can elaborate on that further.
Yeah, sure. So the 80-20 rule is, I think it's a decent rule of thumb. So it's 80% of your personal statement should be academic and intellectual and scholarly, and then 20% tell us some other stuff about you. But we don't get a ruler out. We're not like, right, this is 21% hobbies, so therefore, again, we're cancelling this application. We don't kind of think like that. So, I mean, broadly, as long as you're mainly talking about academic stuff, and you mentioned a few hobby stuff at the end, then I think that's fine. But 80-20 is, I think, is a good rule of thumb.
For people wanting to do medicine, I know it's slightly different with the increased emphasis on work experience. Maybe you could speak about that more, and also whether people should stress out if they, for example, their work experiences or internships or research projects were cancelled as a result of coronavirus. What could they do instead?
In this weird era when we have this pandemic and everything's restricted, it is true that things like work experience and maybe some other opportunities to go and see some university lectures might be more difficult for you. But I think that institutions like museums, art galleries, universities, the Royal Societies have actually done really well releasing stuff online. So they've got rid of some of their paywalls and they're doing more things online. We're all reacting to this pandemic. So there's more things that you can do online than you used to be able to. And my medical tutor that works at Brasenose, that Fran will know very well, if I ask him, what should medical students do to prepare, he would just say read. That's all he would say. He would just say go and read and think. And he wouldn't say you must go and shadow a consultant, or you must see at least 5 heart transplants or something. He would just say just read and think. So I think that work experience is great and it's really useful and makes you think. It gets you to see some real life medical situations. But reading medical journals, reading like BBC, Science, portion of the website, watching Inside Health or listening to Inside Health, which is on BBC Radio 4, watching 24 Hours in A&E. Those are all great things as well. But the key thing is not to try and do as much as you can and say, right, I've done 24 hours of extra reading and thinking today. It's, can you reflect on the bits and think about the things that you're reading and interacting with it and being critical about it, having a critical eye and thinking do I agree with this methodology, or do I think that this measure is doing the right job? And like COVID, again, it's an amazing opportunity because there's so much medical discourse at the moment out there. There's we're listening to the scientists right now, and they're having airtime, and there's lots of interesting research to do with COVID. So, it's a good opportunity to engage in that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't worry about missing out. I'd see it more as an opportunity if at all possible. It's always best to see what's broadly a very negative thing as how can I get the best out of this difficult situation, I would say.
Yeah, definitely kind of a mentality that I try to adopt myself. Like, despite the pandemic being awful in so many ways, it has also given rise to various opportunities. There's been a rise to more emphasis on online stuff that you can do for your super crick, online work experiences. Yeah, definitely look at the silver lining of the situation and also do your research. Google will become your best friend, and you will find so much all by just typing, researching, reaching out to people, asking questions. You won't know unless you ask. So yeah, Google is your best friend. Check it out. Yeah, kind of moving on from the personal statements. Next is about colleges. I know the collegiate system is something that's very specific to Oxford, Cambridge, and I think Durham, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong. So to those who are applying to these universities, does the college you apply to affect your chances of getting in?
Yeah, so people worry about college choice a lot. They think about, is the college that I want to put down as my preference going to disadvantage me because it's going to be harder to get onto my course? Am I going to enjoy my college? Is it close enough to my lectures? There's all that kind of stuff. But I worry about that too. So I look at the statistics closely. And reassuringly, what I'm finding is that your college choice does not affect your chance of getting in. And I think different courses have slightly different approaches to how they do pooling. But all you really need to worry about as applicants is put down whatever college you want as your preference. It doesn't matter. Or put down an open application. That doesn't matter either. We don't know or care if you've done that. And a computer will assign you to a college. Every college is brilliant. I mean, Fran and I hope Fran agrees with me that Brasenose is brilliant and we love it. And it's just fantastic. We're members of the family, effectively. But all the other colleges are great too. They have great facilities, they have great teachers, they have a great vibe, they have like social stuff that goes on. The pooling system where we share applications across colleges. So you're effectively, although you're putting down a college preference, you're applying to the university and you'll get in regardless of college choice if you're good enough. It just means you don't need to worry about it. So the best people get in regardless of college choice. Brasenose is the best there.
100%. And yeah, the next question is about interviews, because we know that this year interviews won't take their normal format, which is normally in person. Rather, they're going to be online. How to prepare for them and how to still have that same connection with your interviewer and tutor.
Amazing question. Yeah, thanks whoever wrote that one. That's very insightful. So I've been sitting in interviews for 11 years and I've probably sat in about 500 interviews now across all different subjects, including medicine, which is one of my favorites, I must say. And the kind of unifying feature, the thing that you see in all the different interviews, is they will always give you something new to think about. And so my key tip with interviews is to expect that. Don't expect particular questions, just expect the unknown. You never really know what they're going to do with you. It might be a graph if it's medicine, might be a poem if it's English, might be a primary source if it's history. You just never know. So you just got to be willing to engage and interact with the tutors. And I would just see them as humans, like people that share the same subject interests as you rather than the enemy. I think a lot of people go into their interview thinking, I've got to try and combat these people. But no, they're actually there to help you. And they'll challenge you intellectually and they'll make things hard, but they'll also hopefully give you ideas and help you where appropriate. So don't see them as the enemy. Anyway, so that's my general tips about interviews. Now, the online interviews, I think, is something that we're working on right now in Oxford and Cambridge. We're figuring out exactly how it's going to work. But I think it'll be something like this. It'll be a screen. You've got a couple of tutors and there's you. You'll probably be in your school and you'll have like 25, 30 minutes with your tutors and you might have 2 or 3 interviews. So pretty much similar to how it worked in the physical world, and that will work again once COVID is over, hopefully. So I think that probably it'll work in a similar way and there'll be the same kind of dynamic. But you're right. I mean, there are subtle differences, right, between the real world and the Zoom world. So, I think it'll just be slightly different things will bother you. Like you'll accidentally pick a hilarious virtual background or something, or your Wi-Fi will break rather than you like accidentally tripping over in the interview, or like snapping your pencil in front of the tutors, or burping or something. So there'll probably just be these little things. And the key thing is the tutors, it's not like a job interview or like Dragon's Den or something where they're trying to pick faults in you and make you go wrong. They're very forgiving of anything that you think you're embarrassed about anything that goes slightly wrong. It's just the main focus of the interview. Interview will be how you react with the tutors and how you talk to them and how you think through the questions or the data or the material that they're giving you. So I would actually practice anyway. I whether they're physical or online, they're all online this year, but I would generally just practice by talking out loud. I would set up a Zoom call with your granny and just talk about your homework or something, and just get used to interacting online. You could do it that way, but you could do it physically. Get your teachers to talk to you about their favorite equation or their favorite molecule, and kind of interact with them. So you don't really need to set up actual mock interviews, I don't think, although your school might do that. I think just talking, just getting used to verbalizing your thought processes and saying what's on your mind, and also risking being wrong. What we really want you to do is guess a lot of the time. So Fran might remember some of this from her interview, but there's no way that, candidates are just not in control. They don't really know what they're trying to say. They're just kind of muddling through, really. And that's what we want to see, because we want to see how your brain thinks. So you have to be ready, and you have to embrace that feeling of like it being a voyage into the unknown. And I think it'll be like that online just as much as it is face to face. So practicing talking out loud, and maybe doing that over Zoom or Teams or whatever, just for fun. You don't really need anyone to listen. Obviously, you can do it in front of the mirror if you want, but as long as you're used to the sound of your own voice. And then I think just your general, your natural enthusiasm and interest in the course will come through naturally that way.
Amazing, thank you so much. And you mentioned something that made me laugh, and it was about how I was guessing quite a lot of my interviews, which is very true. And I'm looking back at the tutorials that I had all throughout first year, and I must have guessed stuff in like 45% of them. So the guessing doesn't stop at interviews. And Joe is absolutely right in mentioning that the tutors don't want to catch you out. They're not the enemy. They want to see you strive and to do well. And yeah, Joe, you did an amazing job at already answering the question I was meant to ask you now, which was how to prepare for traditional interviews, because they're very different. So I guess my next question is, what are your top 2 things to do in interviews and top 2 things to avoid in interviews?
Okay, so I guess my top 2 things to do is, first of all, just try and be yourself. So you have to think, and please do this just before your interview, any interview, I think. Just remember, what's the very worst that could happen here? You're applying to Oxford or Cambridge, you get an interview, you're about to start your first interview, a bit nervous. Just take a breath and think, what's the very worst that could happen here? And the very worst that could happen is you don't get an offer to Oxford or Cambridge, and you get to go somewhere else, absolutely amazing, and have a brilliant 3 or 4 years or 6 years in Fran's case, and study the subject of your dreams. So you have to keep it in perspective, like Oxford and Cambridge or whatever else your top interview top university choice is. It's not the be all and end all if you don't succeed in achieving that. You'll still be a success anyway. So you got to kind of believe in yourself, but also keep it in context. It's not to like do your best, but if things don't work out, then don't worry about it too much. And then the second thing is sometimes the tutors might ask a question that you don't understand. And the important thing there, I think, is to ask for clarification rather than guessing what you think they've said and just wittering on answering the question that you kind of hoped they'd asked, but you're not really sure. Normally, if you don't understand a question, it's because the tutors have mumbled it, or they've said a word that you don't understand, and it's not your fault or something. So ask for clarification if there's anything you don't understand. And sometimes I've seen many interviews where the candidate has said, "Well, I'm not sure. Is that because of the bonds or because of, I don't know, if it's chemistry?" And they ask a really insightful question of the tutors. And that is kind of almost part of the interview, is can they spot what the questions they should ask are? So be yourself and be confident, and remember what's the worst that can happen is not so bad. And ask for clarification, ask questions if you need to. Then the 2 things to avoid. All right, so superficiality, I guess. So we honestly don't care what you're wearing or what jewelry you've chosen or what your hair looks like or your accent or anything like that. So You don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure some people think a little bit about, what outfit makes them feel most comfortable, and they're going to wear their lucky earrings or something. I had an earring, by the way. This is what happens when you have a midlife crisis and the lockdown at the same time. You get so don't worry about superficiality. The other thing is any silence they interpret as awkward silence in an interview. So try and fill it with stuff. You don't need to fill it with stuff. You can have thinking time. So you can just pause and think and let those cogs turn, and just don't be afraid of that silence. So don't always try and fill silences with words that are not so meaningful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I guess my top thing to do is, I'm just going to copy Joe here, and that was to be yourself. Don't try to fit into the mold of what like kind of the stereotypical traditional Oxford candidate would look like. Be yourself. They want to interview you, they want to get to know you, and for the majority of times the tutors that are interviewing you, they will actually go on to teach you, so they also want to see if your style of learning is compatible with their style of teaching. So if you try to impersonate someone else in your interview and you do happen to get in, it might be a shame if you end up actually starting at Oxford and you find that you're not compatible. So please try your best to be yourself. Final question for you, Joe, is about admissions tests, which are, I believe, in around a month's time. What is your top advice for preparing for admissions tests, particularly whilst studying A-levels or IB?
Yeah, sure. So the admissions test, you're right, there in about a month's time in most cases. Have a look at the websites and stuff if you're not sure. Okay, so there's lots of different admissions tests out there that Oxbridge use. Some, like the maths test, is for maths candidates, and they do tricky maths stuff. So that's fairly straightforward. And then the history test is for history applicants, and it gives you some history to look at. But there's also some more general thinking skills tests out there, like the TSA, and to an extent the LNAT, which is what the law students have to do. And my main message really is they are a challenge, and they're meant to be. They're meant to be difficult. So when you look at the past papers, which you should do, or the sample papers, and you have a go at doing them, which I'd also recommend, don't be intimidated by the fact that you can't do it all and you're not getting 100%, because nobody gets 100%. Everybody struggles. And it's kind of what we're testing almost, is how you deal with that challenge and how you deal with the level of difficulty. Like, can you stretch yourself? So when you look at the past papers, you'll see what I like. I think some people's reaction is, I haven't done this at school, or I don't know anything about that period of history, or I've never seen that poem before, or for the BMAT, I don't know anything about these essay questions. But that's kind of the idea. We're testing your ability to think on your feet and to be imaginative and use your cognitive powers in new and interesting ways. So, let's say the physics test, a lot of the time it's like stuff you learned at school, let's ask you difficult questions which kind of use that knowledge but in new and interesting ways. So your knowledge gets kind of transmuted to this new situation. So it's an intellectual challenge, and you have to embrace that and not be intimidated by that. You wouldn't be applying to top universities, whether it's Oxford or Cambridge or elsewhere, if you weren't really bright. And we want to challenge you. But do your research, have a look at the past papers, do them as mock tests, read every single word of advice on the official websites, because a lot of it is really useful. And there's also some good self-help. I mean, I think Fran has done some amazing stuff herself. But then there's also, for instance, for some of the aptitude tests at Oxford, the guy at Jesus College, Oxford, Matthew, he's done a load of TSA and LNAT videos that you can watch on YouTube. So there's a little bit of help you can get out there. But ultimately, it's about your aptitude and the way your brain thinks. So you can't really train to do these tests in the same way that you might be able to train to do your GCSE exams or something. There's more specific advice. So some of you might have to do like an unseen essay, like Fran had to do. So for the BMAT or the LMAT or TSA, and really the trick there is being able to write an essay quickly that's nicely structured. So it's more about structure than like throwing in loads of stats about something that you think you might know about. It's more about being able to make an argument. So yeah, try and understand the nature of the test by doing some research. But really it's about turning up on the day and believing in yourself and backing yourself to have a go at these difficult questions, knowing that they'll be hard, and have like some chocolate or something before the test so that you're totally focused and you're like buzzing on the test for a couple of hours, and then you can go and have a nap or something.
The nap is always the thing that I look most forward to after like a test or an interview. But yeah, they're all my questions. And yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for taking time out of your day to come and answer all these students' questions about admissions. And one thing to say before I end the video is I will make sure to include the links to everything we've mentioned in this video. Some of my videos that I've done on admissions, some of the videos that Matthew from Jesus College, Oxford has created on admissions tests. And I'll also put the Brasenose page down below, which has loads of information. And if there were any questions that we didn't answer or you'd like more clarification on, you can actually email Joe directly and he'll get back to you as soon as possible, and that's at schools@bnc.ox.ac.uk. it'll be on the screen and down below, so definitely check that out. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and again, thank you, Joe, for just being amazing, awesome. Make sure you guys please comment, please subscribe, engage, and let me know how you found this video and if you'd like to see more videos like this. And best of luck with all your applications, and I would love to hear about where you've applied and everything. And yeah, I'll love you guys and leave you and see you in the next video. Bye.